Currency and time. It's a strange relationship. In the 1980s, the dollar was trading in the 10 to 20 range. Some of you may remember this. In the 1990s, it reached 30. $1 was equal to 30 Indian rupees. At the turn of the century, it was 44, and today, 80.14. The Indian rupee has breached 80 against the US dollar. It's a record low. So tonight, we're focusing on three questions. Why is the rupee collapsing so fast? How does it affect you? And what is the global picture? Question number one, why is the rupee falling? The immediate trigger is the US inflation data. The market was expecting 8.8%, but the actual figure turned out to be 9.1%, the highest level in 41 years. So naturally, the Federal Reserve will turn aggressive. Experts are predicting a 100 basis point hike. If that happens, the dollar will gain even more. Another reason is India's trade deficit. Now, what does that mean? Let's assume you export goods worth $10. You also import goods worth $15. The difference is your deficit. So in this case, the deficit is $5. And right now, India's deficit is widening. It is almost $24 billion, an all-time high, $24 billion. You can blame oil prices for that. Every country, including India, is spending more dollars to buy oil. Next question. How does the falling rupee affect you? Through imported inflation. You see, India is an import-dependent nation. We import televisions, mobile phones, oil, gold, all sorts of things. When the dollar rises, your imports become more expensive. You have to spend more for the same commodities. Now, the final question. What is the global picture? Well, it's very similar to India's. The rupee is not the only currency that is falling. The Indonesian rupiah, the South African rand, the Chinese yuan, all these currencies are down 5 to 6%. But the most interesting story is the euro. For 20 years, the euro was more valuable than the dollar. But on Tuesday, that changed. The dollar and the euro hit parity. In other words, $1 now equals to €1. And all of this points to one global crisis, cost of living. Simply put, things are too expensive. Wheat prices are up 55% compared to last year. Oil prices are up 40%. These two commodities determine overall costs, food and fuel. And right now, both are way too expensive. The United Nations has put a number to this crisis, 71 million. 71 million people could fall into poverty because of this crisis, because of inflation. How are governments responding to this? Some countries are betting on cash transfers, like the United Kingdom. The UK is paying £650 to 8 million households. This money will be paid in 2 installments. Why don't other countries try this out? Because there's a downside to cash transfers. If you put more money into the economy, you could trigger inflation. So most countries are staying away from cash transfers. Instead, they're raising interest rates. They're going the traditional way. Let me round up what happened this week. The Bank of Canada hiked interest by 1%. That's 100 basis points, 1%. Reserve Bank of New Zealand increased rates by 0.5%. So did the Bank of Korea. What about India's Reserve Bank? Their next policy announcement is in August. And by then, the US Federal Reserve will have announced their next move. So chances are an aggressive hike is around the corner, perhaps 40 to 50 basis points. Where does that leave the global economic recovery? In a lot of trouble. The IMF chief has published a blog on this issue. Let me tell you what she said. The outlook remains extremely uncertain. It is going to be a tough 2022 and possibly an even tougher 2023 with increased risk of recession. The Bank of America agrees. Their economists are predicting a mild US recession in the second half of 2022. America's GDP is expected to contract 1.4% in the fourth quarter, which means recession. All indicators are there, like oil prices. They're still higher than last year. But look at the recent data, and this is very interesting. In the month of March, Brent crude touched $128 per barrel. That's 1 month after Russia's invasion. Today, it is trading at $99, so oil has actually fallen below $100 for the first time since the invasion. What does that mean? A looming economic slowdown. Let me explain. When there's a recession, economic activity comes down, factories reduce output, offices shut down. There are fewer cars on the road, fewer flights in the air. So the demand for oil falls rapidly, and when demand falls, so does the price. Right now, markets are predicting exactly that. A slowdown would be the best case scenario. A recession is the worst case. And how do we avert that worst case? Through joint action. Later this year, world leaders have the perfect opportunity, the G20 summit in Bali. Leaders must use this summit to ease the supply shortages, to reduce the pressure on food and fuel prices. If not, we could plunge headfirst into recession. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.